Now for our story. It was after supper at the Lane farm. Randy Lane had helped his mother wash up the dishes. Now, Lefty Larkin stands in the kitchen doorway watching as Randy hangs up the dish towel and Aunt Mary takes off her apron.
There. That didn't take long, did it?
Yeah, Randy's getting to be pretty handy around the house. Is that what you learned in the Marines, Randy?
No, they taught me a lot, but my talents with the dish towel were carefully developed by my mother.
Oh, Randy's always been a lot of help, ever since he was a little tyke.
Oh. And yet I seem to recall his disappearing down the river quite a lot in the summertime.
Oh, well, sure. A fella has to have a little recreation, you know.
Say, it's a swell night. Why don't we sit out on the porch for a while, Aunt Mary?
Why, that's a good idea. Randy, won't you join us?
Oh, sure, I'm all for it, Mom. But say, you'll need a wrap over your shoulders. I'll get something out of the hall closet. What'll it be?
Well, son, Well, if you don't mind, Randy, I'd like that old football sweater of yours.
You mean that ragged old brown thing?
Oh, I wore it all last summer, whenever Lefty and I sat outside. It made me feel nearer to you somehow.
Why, Mom? For such devotion, you get a great big hug.
Oh, goodness, but you're strong.
All the better to work for you, said the wolf.
Oh, Randy.
Well, you all set? You two go on out, and I'll bring the sweater.
Yeah, this is my favorite time of day. Dusk.
Yeah, it's nice, Lefty. But I think I like the early morning best of all. Just as the sun comes up. How about you, Mom? Any preference?
No, I don't believe I have. I like all the times of day and night.
Wow, that makes you a very easy woman to please, Mrs. Lane.
Yes. Times of day are like the seasons. Each has its own particular charm.
Well, I guess I'm just prejudiced. I like dusk and summer. At least in the country.
Yes. Summer's pretty dreadful in the city. Everybody scurrying around in that heat.
I remember years ago working on the newspaper. That office was just like an oven. Lucky for me, though, I was a police reporter at the time. So I'd hang around the city hall. It was nice and cool there.
You know, I've always wondered, Lefty. Don't you ever get a yen to go back to that sort of life?
You mean the newspaper and all that stuff?
Yeah. Must have been a lot of excitement in it.
Well, there is. But I don't miss it. I've got plenty of excitement right here on the farm. Only it's a different kind.
Excitement, Lefty?
Sure. It all depends on what you're after, Aunt Mary. I get a great big thrill out of planting that flower garden of mine, for instance. Of course, I can imagine what some of those fellas I used to work with would say if they heard me talking this way.
I'll bet they'd laugh their heads off. You were quite a gay blade in those days, weren't you, Lefty?
I got around. But I wouldn't go back to it for anything. I've got time to live now. Time to think about things. Do a little reading.
By the way, Lefty, speaking of your garden, I noticed David's delphinium when I was there the other Sunday. They look very nice.
Oh, he'll do all right. David Bowman's no slouch as a gardener, even though I've kidded about it a lot.
Oh, no, I don't know about kidding, Lefty. Seems to me you got kind of hot under the collar a couple of times.
I know. Well, I've been feeling kind of grumpy lately. I've been meaning to tell you both I'm sorry to have been such an old grouch. It's a wonder you stood for it.
Oh, we knew you'd feel better before long. A person can't be up in the clouds all the time, Lefty. Randy and I know that.
Well, I promise to mend my ways from here in.
Don't worry about it, pal. As Mom says, we all have our ups and downs.
There's our whistle, Lefty.
Yep, the 7:15. Some engineer on that train. Always right on the dot.
When I was a girl, a train whistle used to make me imagine the most exciting things. Travel, distant places. Do you ever feel that way, son?
Oh, maybe I used to, Mom. But now I'm happy to say that it doesn't do a thing to me.
I'm glad. Of course, if you did want to go away, I wouldn't say a word. You know that.
Well, don't worry about it, Mom. I'm very happy right where I am.
This seems to be an evening for feeling pleased with our lot in life. Randy's content, and I'm content. And I have a pretty good idea Aunt Mary is. Am I right?
Well, Lefty, I'm happy as long as my family is. I won't say there aren't a couple of things on my mind at present, but we'll hope they work themselves out. Anyway, let's not think about them now. Well, I guess Lily Devon will be coming down before long. I'm looking forward so much to the supper club getting underway.
Is Lily planning to move down here bagging baggage?
Yes, I imagine so. She's going to have her hands full getting the place started. She won't have time to get up to Chicago very often.
You know, it strikes me as very peculiar.
What's that, Lefty?
Well, I mean a girl like Lily being willing to come down here to Wakefield, to a little town. Seems rather strange.
Well, what makes you say that, Lefty? I don't see anything especially strange about it.
Maybe that's because you don't know much about girls like that, Randy. But I do. I've known lots of them in my time. Gals who'd knocked around quite a bit, lived pretty fast lives.
Well, I don't see why you have to assume that Lily's lived a fast life. Just because she's been an entertainer. If she'd been working in an office or something all her life, you wouldn't think anything about it.
Oh, maybe not. But there's a big difference. I know the way those vaudevillians live, traveling around from place to place, no home life. It's bound to harden them as time goes on. And Lily's no adolescent, you know. She's a grown woman. How old would you say she was, Aunt Mary?
Well, let me see. I've never been very good at judging women's ages. Of course, I know she's quite a bit older than Peggy.
Quite a lot older than Randy, if you ask me.
You're crazy, Lefty. Anyway, what difference does it make? A few years one way or the other?
No difference at all.
People are always ready to expect the worst of any girl who's had something to do with show business. It makes me sore. You know, Lily told me quite a lot about her background. She couldn't help it if she happened to grow up in that sort of environment. I know she may sound kind of tough, all that wisecracking, but she's not that way underneath.
I wouldn't want to bet on that, Randy. Oh, she's all right, I guess.
Lily's a good girl, Lefty.
Oh, sure. I don't think Lily would do anything dishonorable. But you gotta remember, a girl like her has seen the seamy side of life.
All the more reason she'd know what she wants in the long run.
Yeah. I'd say she knows what she wants. Probably knows how to get it, too.
Just what do you mean by that, Lefty?
She probably wants a man to support her. A couple of fur coats, the usual thing. And with her looks, she oughtn't have any trouble. But why she'd want to come down here to live in a little town, that's what I can't figure out.
Maybe that's the trouble. You don't really know anything about Lily at all.
Say, seems to me you're taking an awful lot of interest on this subject, Randy. Don't tell me Lily's...
Just because a guy wants to be fair.
Randy's right, Lefty. It's only fair to reserve judgment about people until you're sure of what you're saying.
But I know about girls like Lily. I've known dozens just like her, I tell you.
Maybe things have changed since you were young.
Oh, wait a minute, boy. I'm not exactly in my dotage, you know.
Then don't talk as if you were. If I were you and couldn't find anything decent to say about Lily Devon, I'd keep quiet entirely. It's obvious you don't know what you're talking about.
Say, what goes on here? Well, there's no need to get sore, Randy. We're just talking.
Just talking, yeah. Well, I've had enough. I'm going in. Good night, Mom.
But, Randy...
I'll see you in the morning.
Well, for the love of Mike. What's eating him, I wonder?
Aunt Mary looked toward the door through which her son had just left. Randy had always been quick to defend anyone he thought was being unfairly criticized. But was that all this flare-up meant? He and Lefty were ordinarily the best of friends. And now the evening, which had begun so pleasantly, was spoiled. And Lily Devon hadn't even arrived yet. Is this a hint of what is to follow when the young woman really comes to live in Wakefield?